The massive diplomatic station hummed with a quiet energy, its metallic corridors stretching like veins through a technological marvel. Hani Park stood motionless, her slender frame wrapped in a crisp service uniform that highlighted her pale blue skin and delicate bone structure. Her eyes, large and reflective, scanned the environment with a mixture of practiced detachment and underlying curiosity. Another diplomatic assignment, another human to serve. Another day in a life that seemed predetermined by her species' centuries-old servitude traditions. Starbase Epsilon was different from other stations she had worked. Its architecture suggested a complexity that went beyond mere functionality. Clean lines, intricate data networks subtly integrated into walls, and an atmosphere that felt more like a living organism than a static structure. Jae-Kwon Lee's personal quarters were her destination, a human diplomat who had become something of a curiosity among the station's personnel. Rumors circulated about his unconventional approach to interstellar negotiations, but Hani had learned long ago to dismiss station gossip. Her footsteps made no sound on the polished metallic floor. Years of training had made her movement almost ghost-like, a skill valued in her profession. Service meant invisibility. Service meant anticipating needs before they were spoken. As she approached the designated quarters, a complex security system scanned her biosignature. Unlike other diplomatic zones, this entrance seemed to have multiple layers of protection, not aggressive but intelligent, adaptive. The door slid open with a soft whisper. Inside, the quarters were not what she expected. No lavish decorations, no ostentatious displays of diplomatic status. Instead, a meticulously organized living space that spoke of precision and deliberate design. Holographic displays flickered silently, displaying what seemed like complex star charts, economic models, and diplomatic communication logs. Each display seemed to be telling a story, connecting invisible dots that most would overlook. Hani began her routine, cleaning, organizing, preparing the workspace for the diplomat's daily activities. Her movements were calculated, efficient, almost mechanical. But something felt different today. A small data tablet caught her attention, not intentionally left out, yet not completely hidden. Her training demanded she ignore personal items, but something about its positioning seemed deliberate. She hesitated, a microsecond of uncertainty. Then a soft sound from the adjacent room. Footsteps. The diplomat was returning. Hani straightened her uniform, returning to her professional demeanor. Her previous moment of curiosity vanished, replaced by the calm, controlled persona of a perfect service worker. Jae-Kwon Lee entered. Mid-30s, athletic build. Intelligent eyes that seemed to analyze everything simultaneously. He carried a portable data device and looked tired but focused. "Good morning," he said simply, his voice carrying a neutral tone that didn't invite further conversation. Hani bowed slightly. "Good morning, Diplomat Lee. Your quarters are prepared." He nodded, moving towards his workspace. His movements were deliberate, each action suggesting an underlying strategy. Not just walking, but navigating space with purpose. Outside the quarters, the station continued its rhythm. Diplomatic personnel moved about. Communication channels buzzed with interstellar conversations. Millions of kilometers away, entire civilizations conducted their complex dance of politics and survival. And here, in this small, perfectly organized space, a human diplomat and an alien service worker began another day. Neither knowing how dramatically their paths were about to intersect. Hani returned to her cleaning, her reflective skin catching the soft artificial light. Another day. Another assignment. Or so she thought. Little did she know that this particular diplomatic posting would challenge everything she understood about service, hierarchy, and the complex relationships between species in this vast, intricate universe. Day was just beginning. The station's artificial lighting created soft shadows across Jae-Kwon Lee's workspace. Hours had passed since Hani's initial encounter with the diplomat, and her curiosity grew with each passing moment. During her routine cleaning, She noticed details that seemed unusual. Star charts weren't just standard diplomatic references. They were annotated with complex mathematical calculations, strange symbols, and interconnected lines that suggested something more profound than typical navigation maps. One holographic display caught her attention. Economic models that looked different from standard galactic trade protocols. These weren't just charts, they were blueprints for systematic change. Hani's hand hovered near a data tablet. Professional training screamed at her to maintain distance. But something pulled her curiosity, a tiny hesitation, a moment of internal conflict. She touched the screen, encrypted files flickered. Fragments of diplomatic communications revealed layers of information most service workers would never comprehend. Resource distribution strategies, minority species protection protocols, innovative economic models that challenged existing galactic power structures. The human diplomat wasn't just another bureaucrat. He was something else entirely. Most diplomatic personnel from dominant species treated service workers like background noise, invisible, disposable. But these documents suggested a different approach, a systemic understanding of interconnected civilizations. Her species had served galactic powers for generations, always at the bottom, always marginalized, always expected to be silent observers. But these documents? They told a different story. Jay's research suggested a radical perspective. Economic models that didn't just redistribute wealth but restructured entire societal frameworks. Diplomatic strategies that considered the smallest, most overlooked civilizations. A soft sound interrupted her exploration. Footsteps approached. Hani quickly returned to her cleaning, her reflective skin momentarily changing color, a biological response to unexpected stress. Professional training kicked in, no sign of her previous investigation. The diplomat entered carrying multiple data devices. His eyes scanned the room quickly, not suspiciously, just a habitual assessment. Everything in order? He asked, his voice neutral. Yes, Diplomat Lee, Hani responded, her tone perfectly modulated. He nodded, moving towards his workspace. Each movement calculated, each action purposeful. Unlike other diplomats she had served, he seemed more like a strategist than a bureaucrat. The holographic displays continued their silent dance. Complex information flows, interconnected data points, a universe of information most would never understand. Hani continued her work, but something had changed. Her perception, her understanding. The invisible barriers between service worker and diplomat seemed suddenly more transparent. Outside the quarters, the station continued its endless rhythm. Thousands of personnel from hundreds of species moved through metallic corridors. Communication channels buzzed with interstellar conversations. But here, in this small space, something fundamental was shifting. A service worker was beginning to see beyond her predetermined role. A diplomat was quietly redesigning systemic approaches to galactic interactions. Two individuals, one small moment, potential for massive transformation. The day continued, routine tasks performed, diplomatic protocols maintained. But underneath the surface, something was changing. Hani's reflective skin continued its subtle color shifts, a biological indicator of internal complexity. Thought, curiosity, the beginning of understanding. The universe, vast and complex, continued its intricate dance. And in this small corner of a diplomatic station, a new story was just beginning to unfold, not with dramatic explosions or violent confrontations, but with quiet observations, subtle realizations, the kind of change that starts with a single moment of unexpected understanding. The conference hall buzzed with diplomatic tension. Representatives from 15 different galactic civilizations sat arranged in a circular formation, their body languages revealing layers of unspoken conflicts. Hani stood at the periphery, technically invisible. Service workers weren't supposed to listen, weren't supposed to understand. But today was different. Jae Kwan Lee approached the central platform. His movements were calm, calculated. nothing like the aggressive posturing of other diplomatic representatives. The current discussion involved resource distribution in the outer planetary systems. Most representatives argued from positions of traditional power, demands, threats, complex political maneuvering. But Jay was different. His presentation didn't use typical diplomatic language. No aggressive statements, no threats. Instead, he presented a holographic model showing interconnected economic pathways that benefited smaller, marginalized civilizations. Resources aren't just commodities, he said quietly. They're opportunities for collective growth. The room fell silent. Some representatives looked confused. Others looked angry. A few looked intrigued. Hani watched closely. Her species had always been told they were too insignificant to understand complex political negotiations. But today, something fundamental was happening. Jay's model showed how redistributing resources could create sustainable development for civilizations that had been historically oppressed. Not through charity, through strategic economic restructuring. A representative from a dominant species stood up. "This is impossible," he declared. Jay remained calm. "Not impossible, just unprecedented." The diplomatic tension grew. Some representatives started whispering. Others looked ready to challenge him directly. But Jay continued, each statement backed by complex mathematical models, each suggestion supported by detailed research. He wasn't just presenting an idea. He was presenting a completely new way of understanding galactic interactions. Hani realized something profound was happening. This wasn't just a diplomatic meeting, this was a potential revolution. Her training told her to remain invisible, but her curiosity was overwhelming. The meeting continued. Complex discussions, heated exchanges. But Jay remained consistent, patient, strategic. Outside the conference hall, the station continued its routine. Thousands of personnel moved through metallic corridors. Communication channels buzzed with interstellar conversations. But inside this room, something significant was shifting. Diplomatic paradigms were being challenged. Traditional power structures were being questioned. A new perspective was emerging. Hani's reflective skin subtly changed colors, a biological response to intense emotional processing. She was witnessing something extraordinary. The dominant species representative tried multiple times to interrupt, to challenge, to undermine. But Jay's presentation was bulletproof. Each challenge met with calm, detailed explanation. Each potential criticism neutralized through strategic data presentation. As the meeting progressed, something unexpected happened. Representatives who initially looked hostile started showing interest. Some even began taking notes, a small victory, but potentially a massive transformation. Hani understood now why her diplomatic assignment felt different. This wasn't just another routine posting. This was something more. The meeting concluded. No immediate decisions made. But the conversation had fundamentally changed. Jay collected his materials. Calm, focused, seemingly unaffected by the intense diplomatic battle he had just navigated. As he walked out, he briefly made eye contact with Hani. Just a microsecond. But in that moment she felt something profound. Understanding. The universe, vast and complex, continued its intricate dance. Diplomatic stations hummed. Civilizations continued their complex interactions. But something had changed. A small seed of transformation had been planted, and nobody noticed except a service worker who was learning to see beyond her predetermined role. The journey home felt different. Hani's small transport vessel moved through the vast darkness of space, carrying her back to her home planet. But she was no longer the same service worker who had left months ago. Her reflective skin, once a symbol of passive servitude, now seemed to shimmer with a newfound energy. Memories of her diplomatic assignment played like complex video sequences in her mind. The educational sponsorship Jay had provided wasn't just a document. It was a key to a world she had never imagined possible. Her homeworld appeared in the viewport, a planet of rigid hierarchies. Generations of her species trained to serve, to remain invisible, to accept their predetermined position in the galactic social structure. But something fundamental had changed inside her. The transport docked. Familiar metallic corridors, familiar atmospheric pressures. But everything felt different now. Her family waited. Traditional service workers, generations of quiet acceptance. They looked at her, expecting the same Hani who had left months ago. But she was transformed. "I've been offered a full scholarship," she said quietly. The words felt strange, powerful. Her parents exchanged surprised glances. In their world, service workers didn't get scholarships. They didn't get opportunities. They simply served. Hani's hands held the diplomatic recommendation, a simple document that carried the potential to rewrite her entire existence. Her younger sister looked curious. Her parents looked confused, but Hani felt something she had never experienced before. Hope. The educational materials Jay had provided were unlike anything her species had seen. Complex diplomatic studies, economic models, systemic analysis of galactic interactions. Most would see these as just documents. She saw them as blueprints for transformation. Her home colony was a network of service worker communities, generations of quiet acceptance, generations of marginalization. But now, something was different. She began sharing her experiences, carefully, strategically, not with anger, but with understanding. Her fellow service workers listened, at first skeptical, then curious. Then something more profound began to happen. Hope started spreading. The galactic system wasn't just something to be accepted. It could be understood, challenged, transformed. Weeks passed. Hani prepared for her educational journey. Her family watched, a mixture of pride and confusion filling their expressions. The scholarship wasn't just an individual opportunity. It was a potential pathway for her entire community. Her reflective skin continued its subtle color shifts. Biological indicator of internal complexity, thought, potential, transformation. The universe, vast and complex, continued its intricate dance. Civilizations continued their interactions. Diplomatic channels hummed with constant communication. But in this small corner of a service worker community, something significant was happening. A single individual was challenging generations of predetermined existence, not through violent rebellion, not through aggressive confrontation, but through understanding, strategy, a calm, deliberate approach to systemic change. Hani looked at her educational materials. Each document a potential weapon, not for destruction, but for construction, for building new understanding. Her younger sister asked questions, watched, learned. The seed of transformation had been planted. One diplomatic assignment, one human's strategic approach, one service worker's decision to see beyond her predetermined, role the potential for massive change. As her preparation continued, Hani understood something profound. Her journey wasn't just about personal transformation. It was about showing her entire species that their value wasn't determined by their current position. Their value was determined by their potential. The universe watched, waiting, observing. A new story was just beginning, and it started with a simple decision to see beyond existing limitations.